prepared to the candidates did exceedingly well because you really dig deep. You asked a lot of interesting questions. It shows that you think deep about something. You don't just think at a high level.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Whiteboard Confidential. I'm Adam from interviewing.io, and in today's replay, our candidate was asked to design a photo sharing app. This is a classic system design question that touches on topics such as data modeling and how to handle read-heavy systems that need to be scaled to a large user base. What makes this interview special is how the candidate approaches it. He asks great clarifying questions around privacy, metadata, and system trade-offs. He also provides a clean API design that covers response handling and pagination. He also shows an understanding of how the system would function in real-world scenarios and from a user-first perspective, which is expected of an IT5 engineer. If you want to learn how to balance functional and non-functional requirements, as well as consistency and availability of considerations, this is a replay for you. All right, let's hop in.
Do you have an interview upcoming in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so actually, I've got a interview with Stripe Friday, and then the second half of that interview Monday, where I'll be doing a system design interview then.
Oh, and are you going for a senior level position, mid-level, which level?
So right now I'm a senior engineer at Eventbrite, and then at Stripe, senior or a level lower is kind of what I'm aiming for.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I hope this gets you started. I'm going to go ahead and paste the question here, and then if you've seen this before, let me know, and I can swap it out.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that before, but so happy to swap that out. But honestly, I mean, for the sake of practice, happy to kind of go with this and see how well I do.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's get started. Have a look and let me know if you have any questions on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the way I've seen this done before is like going through functional requirements, non-functional requirements, talking about core entities and like an API design, and then getting into like a high-level design. So that's the process I'd like to follow, if that sounds good with you.
Yep, that sounds good.
Awesome. Okay. So for functional requirements, yeah. So we want to upload we want users to upload photos to their profile and see photos uploaded by other users that a user follows. So user uploaded photos. So the first question there is, for these users, is that going to be anonymous, or can we assume that like users have authenticated and signed in when they posted the photos?
Let's assume the users have authenticated, signed in.
Okay, cool. And then, so uploading a photo on their profile, so that kind of assumes like users have a profile that other users can view.
That's correct.
Cool. Okay. So user profiles, viewing other user profiles. So when we view other user profiles, is that like gated by some mechanism? Can you only view like, do we have like private profiles, public profiles? You can only see user profiles for users that you follow, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so let's assume that you can only see a profile if you click follow and that user accepts the follow request.
Okay. Can only see profiles of users you follow. Okay. So we haven't talked about following yet. So let's talk about those requirements. So you mentioned accepting a follow requests. So it sounds like we want, user A can follow user B, or request to follow user B, and then user B can accept or deny that request. Is that right? Or is it just like you can send a follow and then, it just happens?
No, let's assume that I think the former, but when you send a request, the user has to accept or deny.
Okay. Follow requests. Accept deny requests, and that, we need a way to view pending follow requests. Yeah, users can request to follow another user. Users can view pending follow requests and accept, deny. Okay, so that's following. That's requesting a follow. We've talked about viewing other user profiles. And then, so we also want to see photos uploaded by other users. So that kind of sounds just like, a feed of content. So is there particular requirements around that feed? Is it like algorithmic? Is it just most recent?
Yeah. Yes, essentially when the user brings up their feed, they should see the most recent information.
Okay. Ordered by most recent. And I know like feeds today, you get like other relevant content. There's ads. I mean, for the sake of this, I'm kind of guessing we want to ignore that.
Are you talking about suggested people?
Yeah. So like suggest like you're looking at your photo feed, and then there are photos from not people you follow, but from what we think you might be interested in.
Yeah, we could ignore those. Let's assume that isn't there.
Cool. Okay. And you mentioned recommendations, which like reminded me, do we want to be able to recommend user follows?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's assume, let's provide a notification capability where, a user periodically gets suggested up to 3 suggestions of, hey, are these, let's tailor it this way where they might be interested in certain celebrities, right, that are, in certain domains, and they get prompted with suggestions of following celebrities. Like, for example, as an example here, that if they've been following a few basketball players, they might be suggested other basketball players to follow. So something like that, limited to celebrities, not regular users.
Okay, so those follow recommendations are only for celebrities. Okay. So I guess we could generalize that to maybe like high profile accounts.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Okay. Um, gotcha. And then so the follow recommendations. So we've also got search. So I'm guessing we also want to be able to search for other users and search for other photos.
That's right.
Okay. Search for other users, search for other
But I think I say search for users, because when you get a user, you bring up the profile, you'll see their photo, so there's no need to search the photo separately.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And then when we talk about user uploaded photos, what sorts of data is included in that upload? Like, can you add a caption? Are there like filters, etc.?
Yeah, the only piece of metadata will be the caption of the photo and the location,
Okay.
where the photo was taken.
And will other users be able to comment on photos or react to the photo?
Yeah, let's assume right now that for a given photo, the photo can be liked. And let's actually include that there can be comments for the photo as well.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about your typical Instagram-ish sort of features. We've captured a lot here. I feel like it's a very good starting point. Is there anything else as far as functional requirements goes that should be noted?
No, I think you got it good. I think in terms of the end user client device, you don't have to worry about that. You can assume that user can access the app from a mobile device or desktop or anything like that. And you can also assume you don't have to worry about authentication. Users will authenticate to the system.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, and so like along with that, I guess we can also assume there's like an authentication service that we can integrate with.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So when it comes to non-functional requirements, are there any limits around, for example, like the photo upload size or anything like that?
Let's assume the limit on photo upload size is 10 megabytes.
Okay. Megabytes. Photo limit size megabytes. Okay. And then are there any estimates around like daily active users or stuff like that?
Yeah, let's assume to the service there are 1 billion daily active users.
1 billion daily active users. Wow, popular. And so I mean, kind of the next question, I guess, is like, are there limits around how many posts they can make a day?
No, there's no limits.
Okay. So sounds like no limits on writes. I'll assume reads is the same. So for I guess at this point it probably doesn't make sense to get into capacity planning yet. But it would be nice to get an idea of like, in general, are users like writing or viewing photos more often than they're writing, which I feel like makes sense. But is there like a general ratio there? Like users look at 100 photos and for every photo that they post, or something like that.
Yeah, I think read-write ratio, you can assume it's about 80-20. 80% reads, 20% run.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Um. So when it comes to like consistency and availability, low latency, the things that are sticking out to me right now is that we probably want very high availability around viewing photos, but it doesn't necessarily have to be hyper consistent. It's fine if, it takes maybe some amount of time to see the latest photos from users you follow. So I can note that down as like high availability, low consistency for photo viewing. And I guess that would also extend to like commenting and search. But let me know if that's inaccurate. I can adjust.
I think, yeah, I mean, for the app, yeah, high availability, low latency.
Okay.
You can assume there's eventual consistency.
Okay. Cool. Eventually consistent. So thinking more about like kind of the non-functional requirements and like aspects where it's important to focus on like latency, consistency, etc. Is there anything else here worth calling out that I should keep in mind?
No, this looks good to me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so we've got a lot here. I'll just get into like some of the core entities that we're going to be working with. So we've got users, but we also have an auth service. So we might not be interacting with users as much. But I'll note that. So we got users, have photos, of course. There's comments. What else here? We mentioned celebrities. So can we talk a little bit more about that? It sounds like we have different user types, or is that just like an emergent property of our system based on how popular an account is?
I would classify that. So you can assume it's a different user type.
Different.
And essentially, you can probably know this user as those users that are verified users.
I see. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So if we have verified users, then that means like in our functional requirements, we need like some way to register and verify a user then as well. Unless let me know if we've already got like API for that.
I think you could use a simple metric we can assume. So essentially, if a user has more than 100,000 followers, they automatically become flagged to the verified user, simply based on follower count.
Okay. And so when you say automatically flagged, do we need to get anything around like a process that like verifies their ID and who they say are there, or like just for the sake of simplicity, like you got 100K followers, you're verified.
Yeah, I think for simplicity, we can assume it's automated.
Cool. Okay.
And they would have handled any manual checks, ID checks from the background.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Right. Cool. Okay. So we got verified users. We got our normal plebeian users. We got some photos. We have some comments. Okay. I think for the most part, those are the sort of like entities we're dealing with. So yeah, let's talk about API design. We got a lot of photo requirements, but our first thing up here is like uploading a photo on your profile. So let's talk about photo upload first. Seems a good place to start for any. So yeah, let's post to photos.
Well, real quick,
yeah.
I'd like you to dig deep into the schema. Like, I want to see the schema design for each of these entities.
Okay, yeah. So talking about the sort of data that's associated with each.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So users, we'll need a user ID, we'll need a name. I mean, we could probably dig into like, do we want to store first name and last name separately, or do we just want a name field? I feel like name localization might be kind of tricky, especially, and we have 1 billion data active users, so I'm kind of assuming, this is like a global application with users all over the place. So I think just like a single name field probably works fine for our purposes. User ID, name, password. We've got an authentication service, so I'm kind of ignore that. And then users will have followers, and I don't really have that listed in our entities. But I think it makes sense to like represent that separately. Yeah, I feel like there should be more here, but users are gonna have these other things. So for now, I think that kind of our user scheme is pretty light. But let me know if there's anything I need to like flesh out there.
Yeah, I think user. Yeah, I'm curious how you're designing the followers table.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So with our follows here, we got so this is like a relationship from one user to another. So like we could call this like a owner user ID, right? And then a to user ID. And right now, it's follow. So I'm wondering if it makes sense to also have a relationship type. And I don't know if I'm over engineering here. Like if we want follow and like follow with notifications, for instance, or I might be getting ahead of myself. But I'm gonna.
What follow with notification with this follow?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking, like, if a user wants notifications with each time someone they follow posts, maybe we keep track of that in a relationship type, but the more I talk about it, the more I think I'm like rambling a little bit and getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of the vague thought there.
Yeah, I think I see where you're going. I think that maybe going a bit too far. What I'm wondering also if you can simplify this and maybe say have two fields, one called follower, one is followee. Essentially, the person it was neat follows. Yeah, I think that might be easier.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll call that follower user ID. We'll call this followee user ID. Um, and then we need a status because we can have pending, we can have accepted, and we can have denied. Because we don't want like a user to send a follow request, it get denied, and then they just like spam this user over and over again. So we'll want to keep track of both of those states. Yeah. Okay. So I think that looks good for follow. Maybe we, have a created at, and a updated at here, for, logging, debugging, all those sorts of purposes. So if unless there's anything else you want to call up there, I'm going to move on over to photos. So of course we'll want a photo ID. We're going to have content associated with that photo, namely the caption. So can I have the caption? You also mentioned the location of the photo. So yeah, maybe we can call this like location lat. Location lat, location long. Okay, and photos, cons. Yeah, so comments. Oh, sorry, I'm kind of jumping back and forth here a little bit. Create update comment. Okay, and then when it comes to comments, okay.
Yeah. He said, so where, there's gonna be some data about the photo, like the actual binary, blob, all of that. How is that represented? I mean, how do we relate a photo ID to the actual thing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I missed that. Yeah. So I think the way I'd like to handle that is for to use like a dedicated document store, and our photo can just like point to the URLs. So, and in that case, we probably want like a raw URL, a thumbnail version, and then different sized URLs potentially, based on how the user's like looking at the photo. And so I guess the thing I'm thinking about right now is if this is stored in a relational database, like do we just have a JSON blob that's URLs? If it's a NoSQL solution with DynamoDB or something, then it doesn't really matter. We can just throw whatever we want in here. All that said, I think I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So for the time being, I think I'm just going to note like this URLs is an array. It can have a URL that points to, the URL of the thing we're looking at, and then like the URL type, which is, it's not really a type. It's we're really interested in the resolution. So we want the resolution of the image at that URL. I think that's how I want to store that. Yeah. But yeah, let me know if there's kind of any thoughts or questions around that.
I think this makes sense. So it looks like on the back end there will be multiple URLs. Each URL has a resolution. Wait, is it a one-to-one mapping between URL and resolution?
Well, I guess there could be many resolutions. But yeah, one to one.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, so one-to-one is fine. I think you get okay. Because it could be many. Oh, because essentially is what I'm seeing here is that there could be multiple resolutions. And that's why there's an array for the same photo.
Right.
That
Yeah. So, and right now, like off the top of my head, I'm not sure if this resolution is like thumbnail or we specify specifically if like 240 by 240, right? But that's kind of the gist of where I'm thinking right now.
I think that makes sense. I think that clarifies.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, thanks for calling that out. I like blurred right past like the actual content of the whole thing we're building. So photos, captions, the location. All right. So yeah, we want to comment on these. So probably need some sort of like primary comment ID. We want the parent's photo ID. One thing I didn't touch on in the functional requirements is nested comments. So, for instance, like, are all comments going to be like sequentially ordered by most recent underneath the parent photo, or will users be able to like reply to specific comments and we can have like a nested comment thread?
Yeah, I think you can assume that essentially the comment order under photo is ordered by most recent. So essentially, most recent appears at the top, less recent appears at the bottom.
Okay, solid. Um, and I'm going through the schema. I also, in the functional requirements, did not cover editing and deleting as just like creation and getting. Will folks be able to edit or delete comments and or photos?
Let's assume that functionality is not in scope for the design.
Yeah, I love to hear that. So we got a comment, we got a parent photo. There's the actual comment itself. So we can just like call that, our content. The author user ID here. So, obviously if it's like a relational database, we got a lot of foreign key relationships here. But yeah, I'm kind of still up in the air about, how that's going to be designed. So I'm going to hold off on that for now and just kind of note that like there's a potential there. So you got a comment, there's a parent photo, there is the author of the user ID, created, updated. Yeah, it's basic comment, blob of text. So, and then when it comes to verified users, I have this as a separate entity. This is honestly probably just a flag on our users because it's an emergent property of how many followers they have. And yeah, so I think, sticking that as a flag here, if, we could, I think like, again, let me know if I'm getting ahead of myself. If we wanted a hyper denormalized relational database model, you could make an argument like, if you want to know if someone is verified, just look at how many followers they have. But, that would be a lot of read potentially. And based on how we actually end up designing this thing, we might just want, to stick the verified on there, just to make it easier to check that. So for now, sticking that as a flag there. So hopefully that, makes sense.
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, does that make sense as far as entities? Anything else you think I've missed or I should dig deeper into?
Okay, so yeah, follower looks good. Photos looks good. Comments looks good. Yeah, this looks good. I like it. Yeah, looks good.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so let's dig into API design here. Posting a photo. Yeah, I mean, I think like the requests, right? We want just like multi-part file upload, right? So I can't remember the media type for that sort of request off the top of my head, but that's going to be the content of this request. And our response, I think we can probably just, like, in the event of a 200 success, just return the photo ID. And then to handle, in the background here for post photos, sorry, I'm kind of jumping back. We can also handle extracting metadata of the photo. So if we can extract, the location of the photo and any other information we might need. I know on, like, photos, you get a bunch of info about, like, I think, like, the camera type and all this other stuff, which you haven't really captured in our schema, but if that's something we care about, we could do that there. Yeah.
Good question. Is the caption, where's that? Is that part of the multi-part file? Or where's that part of it?
Yeah, good question. So I think for the caption, mentally I kind of have this user experience in mind where, like, first you upload your photo, and it's probably going to take a while to parse and handle that whole thing in the background, some asynchronous task. So on the next screen, I imagine the user can then enter additional information. So if they want to themselves state what the location is actually, or what the caption should be for the photo. So I'd like to make sort of like that metadata a separate API request, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So I'm not in love with metadata, but I'm gonna go with that for now. So we can set, so the user can set a location, can set what was I gonna say? Location, caption, etc. I think initially we stated no filters or anything like that. And that would be complicated, so I'm not gonna talk about that more. So for this request here, we've got a location that the user can set, and the caption. So setting that location itself is probably like a further discussion. But for now, let's say our user just, maybe there's some sort of geolocation picker, and on a map they select that, or they just enter a location, and then we have a way to extract a lat and long. But I think for the purpose of this endpoint, this request makes sense, and we can kind of assume we get the lat and long somehow. And in the event of a 200 response, I don't know if there's a lot we need to return here, so I think probably just like a 204 empty body makes sense. I'm looking at this, and I'm also realizing I've just said photos metadata, and we want a path per m here because we want to know what user ID or what photo ID we are uploading this information for. Yeah, and we'll probably also want to handle 403s if you're trying to update metadata for a photo you are not the author of, or if you don't have authorization information provided. 500 errors for server issues. I didn't call that out up here, but might as well note that as well. I don't think there's really a 403 if you're posting a photo. It's just like, are you logged in or not? Okay. So yeah. That should get us like a photo is uploaded. And I want to talk about viewing user well, okay, so I guess I'm taking a look at time and I see we're at 35 minutes and we're talking about API design. So I want to focus on what's most important because we have a lot of functional requirements and we can't. I don't think I'm moving fast enough to cover all of it. So I'm going to quickly talk about accepting follows and then viewing. Let's just call it a feed because I think that's more interesting than viewing an individual photo or user profile photos. So I'm going to try to get through that next. But let me know if you think there's something else that's more important that you'd like for us to discuss.
Oh, I think that's all.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So for following, I think we can just call that a post request to user ID follow. I mean, really, this operation feed idempotent, so maybe put makes sense. And this will be to request a follow. The request, I think, honestly, we don't need a request here because we should be able to pull the follower from auth headers. And response, I mean, I think it's like that 204 pattern again. Yeah. Okay. And then, so accepting a user request and denying again, idempotent in operations, if you accept an accepted request, it should be fine. So here's the question, I think. We're accepting a specific request, so it's really a follow ID that we're interested in, and it's kind of an enum here of like accept or deny. I think is the way I'd like to structure that. But I'm introducing the concept of a follow ID to operate on a single follow. So I'm jumping back up here to our follow entity, and I'm going to add this follow ID. So yeah. So here a followee can react to a specific follow request. And request, I mean, everything we need is here in the path. So again, I think empty body and 204. So that lets us follow, that lets us react to the follow. Users probably need to be able to view follows. So I'm not being very consistent in like plurality or singularity here, so let me be better about that. Okay. So I can get my follows and yeah, that's interesting because maybe we want to like look at accepted or pending. So there might be a better way to design that, but for now I'm going to say, you can look at accepted follows and you can look at pending follows. Request again is empty and our response is going to be a list of follows. So is it fine if I just like kind of notate here like we have an array of follows? Otherwise I can like specify the exact information that's returned here.
Okay, these are so this gives a list to the user who's been requested to be followed, and they can see all the people basically approve or deny, right? Is that correct?
Right. So you're able to view like these people follow me and these people have pending follow requests against my user.
I see. responses that follows. Yeah, this makes sense.
Okay. So, one thing we might need to consider is also like pagination here.
Yep.
So, uh, you know, uh, we could use like cursor-based pagination or just like offset-based pagination. I think reasoning about like offset and page size is pretty easy to think about. So, I'll throw that in there. But yeah, I mean, certainly a topic of discussion. I know some people have like strong opinions about that. So, okay, we've got follows, viewing follows. So let's talk next again about viewing a feed. So we want to be able to view a feed of photos. So this is a feed of photos from users the currently authenticated user follows. And again, we're like getting this currently authenticated user just from, whatever authentication mechanism we have in place, presumably something in a header. Request, empty response is more interesting because we're going to want a list of photos. And there's going to be some like calculated properties, right, for our photo. We probably don't need, I guess it depends how our caption is displayed. If I'm thinking of like an Instagram feed where it's just the thumbnail, we probably just need like the photo ID and whatever little like text we need on top of that photo. So maybe we have this photo ID. We have the ability for all the URLs. So I think here, yeah, I'm going to stick with just returning, a thumbnail URL and different sizes of URLs because I imagine like on a desktop, that thumbnail resolution might be larger. So maybe the actual resolution that's displayed is like, URL and maybe there's like a small size resolution and that's what's used on like desktop instead of mobile. Created at URLs. Anything else on the feed that we need for photos? I think it's just like list of photos. We want our photo ID so that if we can click on the photo, we can go view it. So I think that gets us, where we want to be. We can have our created at there. Because I mean, I think typically like when you return a response, it should, when you parse that response on your client, I mean, this array should all be in order, but I suppose just for to be extra careful, we can include the created at. So yeah. So I know as far as time goes, we're at 43 minutes. Do you want to continue to talk about API design and the other routes and such we have here, or do you want to move on into kind of like a high level design?
Yeah, this API design looks good to me. Let's proceed with the high level design.
Cool. Okay, so let's pop into a whiteboard. So I toggle the whiteboard on. Can you see that all right?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. So we've got a client, for the sake of like mobile or desktop, operates the same. We have a lot of functionality that we want to account for. So I think, we want to pass all these requests through an API gateway so that we can route to the specific service. And how much would you like to discuss networking at this point? Do we want to just kind of talk at a high level like this request hits an API gateway, the API gateway directs it to the correct service, or do we want to like get into like load balancers or like in AWS, I know it's called CloudFront, that you can like do some routing. Yeah, what would you like to do?
Yeah, we can discuss that looking later. Let's get the use cases addressed.
Okay, awesome. So first off, let's talk about photo uploading. So we probably want some sort of dedicated photo service. We will need some way to handle the photo database. And here, I think what we've got is like our photo metadata, photo ID, etc., right? That genera things and the URLs. Because I would like to store the actual like photos itself in some sort of document store. So oops.
The metadata in the document store, right?
Oh, sorry, say that again.
Did you mean you want to store the photos? You want to store all the photo metadata in the document store?
In the document store, photo metadata. I'm not sure I entirely understand. Could you elaborate a little?
Yeah, so just to understand, so you have a photo DB. Is this the document store that stores?
Yeah. So I mean, I think we could either go with like, a NoSQL or a SQL option. I know sometimes folks will refer to DynamoDB as like a document store since it's just like key value. But for the document store itself, like, we've got the image file. By photo metadata here, what I really mean to say is like we've got the lat long, we've got the caption. I think I worded that properly. Does that clarification make more sense?
Yeah, I think I was just confused because you have photo DB, then you have document store. Wondering, like, which one is actually storing the photos? Are the two databases or one database or?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, in my mind, we have two separate stores for that, right? Maybe we could potentially use DynamoDB for this photo database for just handling like the lat long and the URLs, right? And then we use S3 that's like fronted by a CDN for actually serving those URLs. But now that you bring it up, I'm not actually sure. I'm sure we can just throw like file blobs into DynamoDB and it could handle it perfectly. But at least in like past experience, I've always seen the pattern where you keep those files in S3 and then you reference them in your persistent storage.
Okay. So I guess what I take here is the photo DB, some relational database that has the photos. The blob itself is where it will be stored in the document store.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, maybe just just to make it more clear, just calling out that where the blob, like basically document store parentheses photo blob that's stored there, and the metadata stored there, the relational DB.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks for calling that out. Kind of gets a little confusing talking about like, a photo, since it's kind of spread out conceptually between two different stores. So when we out drawing these arrows is kind of annoying. So when we accept a request for a photo, the way I'd like to handle that is we immediately update our photo database with the information that we have available. And then we set up a queue to handle photo processing. Because we'll accept a raw photo of like 10 megabytes in size, of up to 10 megabytes in size. We don't want to serve that to the user every single time. We want to be able to downres that. So I'd like for the photo service to publish messages to a queue that's basically like, hey, I received a photo, go create smaller resolutions of that photo. So
Yeah.
this photo service, okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And we'll have some kind of worker here, subscribed to our queue, picking up messages. Oops. And it will update our document store. Oops. And update our photo database. So the reason I have photo service saving to the photo database and document store is because the photo service will have our raw initial image. We want to get that in the document store so that when the worker starts picking up messages, it needs the original image to down res. Okay, so that's posting images. And as far as the user experience goes, once photo service is able to properly save to the document store in the photo database, we can return that photo ID and say like, hey, success, we got your photo. The user will go to the next screen, which would be like setting the caption, and in the backend we'll have this async process working. But as far as like saving the caption, if the user has a specific like location that they want to set themselves for where the photo was taken, that would be another request, and the photo service just needs to update our photo database. So high level, I think that's photo creation, and that should cover our post photos and post photos photo ID metadata requests. So let's talk about like viewing a photo, because we will need to serve this information as well. So we've got our document store. The user going to the document store every time will take longer than having some sort of content distribution network where we have like edge located servers that are caching and serving those images slightly closer to the user. So here we've got our document store fronted by a CDN there. So I want to do a quick time check. I know we're coming up on like 55 minutes. How much longer would you like to go for, and while leaving some time for like feedback on the end?
Yeah, I think let's give it a couple more minutes, so we'll let you finish out your thoughts, and then we'll stop at 55.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So as far as following goes, I mean, I think we're talking just like a pretty simple CRUD operation service here that we're working with. I think there's a deeper conversation we could have as far as when we're serving images, we'll need to check that a user is able to view that image, and we'll need to check follows in order to do that. So in order to keep viewing photos low latency, there's probably some optimizations we could do. I think in a typical like microservice framework, our follow service is going to have its own data store. So Yeah, there's certainly something we could do there. But yeah, kind of thinking about, what note to finish on. And then as far as a feed, I've seen a couple different ways to handle that, where either we have um, a sort of orchestration service where there's a um, feed service that's working with both the photo service and follow service to determine what um, users a user is following, and then going to the photo database and checking like, let me all fetch all photos for everyone a user follows. Um, that naturally is probably like a higher latency call, and I've seen some ways to do that where you maintain a queue of content for each user, and then as photos are published, your photo service is publishing an event to that queue, and then that queue is added to a user's customized feed, and then you have mechanisms for scrolling through that feed. But yeah, so I guess
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm following you here. So stop to give me some feedback. First of all, I think you did a really, really good job throughout this thing. I mean, I don't even need to see the rest of the design to know that you've given me enough confidence from your upfront assessment of requirements and the API design, the schema to know that I have confidence you can do it. So I think, first of all, you did a really good job asking good clarifying questions, right? I think compared to other candidates, you did exceedingly well because you really dig deep into the problem. You asked a lot of interesting questions. You asked about reactions to photos. You asked about many different things that have opened up the scope of things. So this is good in terms of a job. It shows that you think deep about something. You don't just think at a high level. You did a good. You moved well into non-functional requirements. Discussed as for the photo size, the data active user count, number of posts user can make. You show that you're thinking about the scale of the system you're building. What are the implications? Uh, Asking about the read-write ratio was good. You have the consistency and trade-offs. Um, that obviously you have the queuing system you put in place, so low latency. You asked about the verification process, if it's automated or manual. It shows that you're thinking very deeply about the problem, and I think folks, interview session and the actual job appreciate that introspection. Overall, very good. I think the only feedback I'd add is the schema design that prompt you to go into the data schema design, otherwise you would go straight to API. But from that schema design, you added the followers information, which I didn't see initially added before. So, as you go through the interview process, really go into the schema design. Even if they don't ask you to do it and then go to API, shows that you're really being thoughtful and deliberate about the design. And what I was really impressed by with your API design, I think you did a really, really good job. The RESTful design was very clear. You talked about the response code. You went into the request and response. It was very coherent and clear to follow. I didn't have much feedback else to add. So really good job there. You discussed pagination. And then moving into the system design, you the way you went into it made perfect sense to me. And then I think throughout your communication skills have been well. You've been pausing in each moment, waiting for my approval to proceed. So, in my opinion, this is a A plus performance. I think you'll have no issue in the next interview.
Awesome. Thank you. I've been really nervous about system design because the last system design I did, I kind of just bombed it. So that's very encouraging. I guess.
Oh, absolutely. The other feedback I had was a document store, which is PhotoDB. So when you're doing these block diagrams, be very clear what data is being stored where. So like when you went to this PhotoDB, okay, PhotoDB is metadata, it will store this, great. Blob store, this is storing the photo blob data. So be very clear what data is being stored where, otherwise it can lead to confusion. That was only the feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that note. So I have one question about something you mentioned. felt like I kind of spent half the time just getting through like to the end of API design. And I think there's been part of me that's like always kind of thought that was bad because you want to get into the meat as soon as you can. But what I'm hearing is that's like good, actually. You want to spend as much time up front digging into and asking lots of questions.
Exactly. Yeah, I think when you get into an interview, I wouldn't worry too much about getting towards the end and having to knock it up. My sense is that it's important to be very thorough in your requirements analysis, design, and that's sufficient enough. So even if you don't get to complete the whole thing, that's fine. You showed you very much thoughtfulness in terms of your articulation, your design, and really in the real world, the fact that you already have an API design, a schema design, anybody could take this and just build it, and it's very clear to follow. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. And if you want to get immediate feedback from the same people who make hiring decisions at companies like Google, Meta, and OpenAI, hit the link in our show notes to book your session now.